this is spontaneous and yeah, I hope I can channel it effectively. I want to talk about a mushroom. So this video has been triggered because I was attempting to type up a message to someone, starting to tell them about this mushroom, and the computer froze and I lost my message, and that's one of the most frustrating things ever for me. It's like when you're typing a message and the technology falters. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just talk it instead of typing it and make a video, and maybe I can make it for more than one person, because this is a message that for me is, like, I think pretty much the most important message, and that's why it's also kind of difficult to like channel this effectively, because it's like very it's very profound, it's very heavy duty. It has a very powerful implication for human being. So yeah, as I was starting this, I was like, maybe I'll give this a little pseudo title, call it like the naked truth, because I'm naked, and what I'm about to do is tell you some truth, particularly about this mushroom. But like this mushroom, because of what it does and how it came to be, and the real history of it and the real trajectory of it all, it like involves everything. Like we can go down a lot of different tangents and rabbit holes with this mushroom. Could probably talk for hours about this mushroom. So hopefully tobacco, as it usually does, can provide some words. Yeah, so this mushroom, man, Amanita muscaria, there's also several varieties that grow across like the United States and other parts of the world that are slightly different, but basically the same thing, effectively the same thing, same active constituents. This is just like one little dried one here, and the lighting's not perfect, so but it's not about, you know, looking at it, it's about tasting it. And that's the thing too, is like, even though I could talk for hours on this, I think truly it's way beyond words altogether. And I don't know where to begin. It's like, do I want to tell you about the history that I supposedly know based on what I've read and heard? Or do I want to talk about the effects, or what to say first? What to say first. So, it is definitely psychoactive, and while there are many people who have tried it and not everyone would recommend it, there are also people who've tried it and highly recommend it, highly esteem it, and highly revere it. That's me. Ever since I tasted this thing, it's been pure entheogenic sacramental magic, just pure absolute best thing ever. And that was from the first time, and I've continued to work with it, and I think I find myself in a kind of position to where maybe, just maybe, I could be considered a sort of expert on this, for whatever that's worth. But I've definitely eaten more of this than most people, and I've always gone about it in a manner that I think is appropriate. I've always taken these things, these herbs, very seriously and sincerely, and have only ever approached them from in a yogic way, a ceremonial, shamanic way. It's always been a very certain intention. So this mushroom, we have like some basic understanding of it, but there's still a lot of research to be done. But very basically, it has two main. Now, just like every other herb, I want to stress every herb contains lots of compounds, and they're all important and they all work together. But we often tend to kind of pick out a few and focus on them. So whereas psilocybin mushrooms have lots of compounds, the psilocin and the psilocybin is what gets emphasized. With the Amanita mushroom, the molecules of focus are the ibotenic acid and muscimol, both of which are very similar to each other, and ibotenic acid actually decarboxylates into muscimol. I think it loses a carbon molecule or something like that. And this happens through heat and being dried. Basically, that's kind of how it happens. It also happens to some degree within the body. So basically, this mushroom has a random concentration of these two compounds. Every mushroom is different in potency, from patch to patch, season to season, fruit to fruit. There's no way to really gauge it by weight. You know, you could have like one that's super and one that's not as super, and it doesn't necessarily go by weight or size. It's just, you kind of just got to test the waters. But these two molecules, ibotenic acid and muscimol, from what we basically understand, they seem to be mostly interacting with and affecting the GABA network, which I don't know where exactly that would be located, except for in here, but the GABA network. And again, too, like, you know, herbs are often, you know, for simplicity's sake, thought of as, you know, it addresses this system, that organ, whatever, with this piece, this part. But, you know, the sum of the parts is not equal to the whole. So everything is connected. You know, your whole body is an intricate system. So if anything is being affected, I believe, personally, I think that the rest is also being affected. So if an herb has a primary effect of the liver, what's connected to the liver? Everything. If an herb has a primary effect of addressing the blood or the brain, what's connected to these things? So we look at these molecules, we say, okay, it's tripping up the GABA network. And also just like psilocybin, it's tripping up these serotonin receptors. But if you've ever experienced these things, or you've ever experienced this thing, you'll be like, well, this experience there's something more here than just simply chemicals in the brain, you know? What is the mind itself? What is consciousness? What is awareness? These are big questions that humanity has been, I don't know, trying to figure out sort of for a long time. Our origins and just what it even is to be awake and aware. What even is consciousness? What is this body? What is this world, this realm? The mysteries, right? The mystery traditions. And that's the other thing about this mushroom, is that if you experience it and look into the history of it, it's pretty much, and there's debate over this, and I have my belief and my opinion, and that is that this mushroom was at the freaking root, genesis, original place of religious and spiritual and meditative sciences and practices. I believe this mushroom taught humans how to meditate, and the scriptures and the yogic system, as well as all the other spiritual systems, whatever name you want to call it, I believe emerged out of the interaction with this mushroom, as well as the other mushrooms, as well as a couple other different herbs. But this one was definitely primary. And I think that's important, because in this world we have religions, but for the most part it's all very distorted and misunderstood and misapplied. And I think that has to do with the fact that we've become detached from the root of it all. And so, you know, religion and spiritual science is kind of trying to point towards a certain experience, a certain union, a certain connection with the self and the supreme self. There's a certain experience to be had. And it's true that you could do it just by your own self and just meditate and pray your way. but it's also very difficult to just do that without any guidance. You know, there's a need for guidance. And in this time period, you know, a lot of guidance is corrupted and distorted. But these herbs are undistorted, untainted. There's no perversion to them. So a lot of people have kind of sold out to make money, and they just kind of regurgitate stuff, and they get a following, and then there's scandals and blah 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 blah. And humans are fallible, but the herbs, they're not fallible, and they've been here since before we were here, and they were here when we first started learning how to talk and pray and meditate. They've been here since the fucking get-go. Very significant. This freaking mushroom is a holy sacrament. All the world religions are tied to this. I swear to goodness. That's the fucking fact. Yoga. You ever heard of yoga? This is the one you can blame for it. This is the fucking guru here. But then, you know, a lot of people would say I'm just fanatical, and like that's just over the top, and like, yeah, it's a medicinal herb, but that's that. So whatever, let's just get down to the practical basics of it, and that like what it can do for you depends on how much you consume and how you consume it. Traditionally, it is used, you know, once in a while at higher dosages as a ceremonial type thing, and it is also integrated as a regular everyday thing at low dosages, you know, like a coffee or a tea or a beer or whatever. People have a little bit and do their work, and then like when the moon is full or new or whatever, they go ham and swallow a bunch and go on their way and do their work and journey. And I actually had some of this like an hour ago with my supper. And yeah, part of the main effect of this mushroom at a low dose. So like there's a certain effect at low dose, and there's also certain effects that happen at a higher dose. The higher doses include the lower effects, but the higher effects, they're really something else. Those, if you want to tread into those waters, you're going to want to have a good set and setting. And I guess people recommend having a sitter. I don't really know what that's all about. I don't really deal with sitters. I am my own sitter. I only ever do this stuff alone. And I found that to be best. But be prepared. It's pretty scary, but it's also wonderful. And I got to be careful here. I'm naked, and I don't, you know, I guess. So low dosages, any dosage, pretty much guaranteed something that will occur when it gets into your system and does what it does is your mental brain chatter, the voice, the talker, the monkey mind, that just quiets down. Just gets quiet, right? Now, what is meditation? A lot of meditation instruction is about getting accustomed and tuned into the silence, right? So you have all these thoughts, and the idea of meditation is to, there's different kinds of meditation. Some are just to watch the thoughts. Maybe other meditation techniques involve intentional manipulation of thought. But either way, there's something going on with the mind, and like silence is kind of the goal, and that's where you want to get to. And then from that silence, you can tap into, I guess, you know, to say it, just like higher awareness. So this mushroom, you know, if you don't know how to meditate or whatever, you're just a human, and humans have these minds that go blah 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 all fucking forever. You eat this mushroom, all of a sudden you can experience some quiet. And it's not that your brain shuts off. It's not like you're not having thought or vision or ideas or inspiration. But there's different levels and layers to your mind. And yeah, at a certain level, you know, it has to quiet so that the greater levels can be revealed. So this mushroom will quiet down the chatter. Alongside that effect, it also dissolves any kind of depression and anxiety, right? So this chattering mind often leads us to be anxious and depressed, worried, confused, fearful, and just like not knowing, you know, not knowing the truth of who we are and what we're a part of. And it's hard to find that way, you know. You need someone to almost to point you that direction. But even, even the best guru ever could tell you verbatim how to meditate, but that does not necessarily translate into being able to. And that's the magic of these mushrooms, is you eat them and they will teach you from the inside out. There's no room for mistranslation or misunderstanding. It's just, it walks you through it and it explains it to you from the inside out. It'll show you, teach you about your mind, teach you about your breath, teach you about your body, teach you about your place on earth, teach you how to breathe, teach you how to just be. Like what this mushroom can do is infinite. That's the thing too, it's infinite. And so I haven't even gotten into the other effects. I'm still just going on about the quieting of the mind. Because it's kind of like a doorway, right? If the door is locked, you only have to unlock it, and then it can be opened. And then it can be stepped through, So what I'm saying with that is, like, when your mind quiets, that's like unlocking it and opening the door. But then what happens after that, that's open-ended. Okay, so you're here and you got a quiet mind for 5 minutes, but what happens when you sit with that for a couple hours, You might learn something or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, so the fear and depression, now that's like a common thing. Depression, anxiety, fear, this is like everyone is suffering from this stuff. So like how can we relieve that, And like all this suffering, it's tied into our biochemistry, it's tied into our bodily system, but it's also tied into our mind and our awareness and our thoughts, right? And they all influence each other. And the body influences the mind, and the mind influences the body, and the breath is between both of that. So yeah, to talk about this mushroom, you inevitably talk about yoga. But, and then this is all just kind of a weird territory, People don't necessarily like to talk about all this stuff, religion and spirituality and this and that. They like to keep it secular and scientific. But this mushroom's mystical, so that's the reality. We live in a mystical world. And like, if you don't believe in God, if you eat this mushroom, you will. You will know God. All right? That's crazy, right? Everyone's looking for God. And here it is in this mushroom. Here it is. It's you. You are God. Everything is God. Everything is God. But do you experience that? Do you know that? You got to be shown that, because it's overwhelming in many ways. The truth. The naked truth. This is going on almost 20 minutes. I guess I'm not really being as concise and direct as I kind of wanted to be. I guess I'm just beating around the burning bush. But like I said in the beginning, it's like all these words I'm going to use, like ultimately the experience is ineffable and it's beyond words. So yeah, beyond words. Spoken and internal. Chatter subsides, quiet mind, meditative state. Okay. Feeling good, all of a sudden all my worries and concerns gone, right? So this trips up the GABA network. So a lot of the effects of this mushroom are actually very comparable to alcohol. However, the mushroom, for whatever reason, doesn't really have any of the negative side effects that alcohol has. You don't wake up with a hangover in pain. You don't have a headache. You don't have sickness. You don't have you don't feel like you feel when you drank too much. And alcohol, that's a whole video in itself. It's a very profound molecule and a very demonized molecule, very misunderstood molecule. Personally, I find value in it for meditation and yoga even. But there's certain similarities between drink and the mushroom. But the mushroom definitely goes beyond. Definitely goes beyond. Now you can eat this mushroom as is. I like to, one of my favorite ways is just to take a piece. Could be a little piece, could be a big piece, could be a whole cap, a half a cap, whatever. But take a piece, whatever size I'm feeling like, and I'll put it in my mouth, right? Right? And put it in your mouth. And pray. And keep it there. and hold it there and let it hydrate and absorb, right? And now it's in the bloodstream. Now it's going and doing its thing. And here we are. Yeah, like this mushroom contains peace. This mushroom contains truth. This mushroom is a direct link to the Godhead. For real, for real. And this is, I'm just all talking about the effect on the mind of an awareness, but this mushroom also has effects on the body. And a lot of this still has to be kind of like researched modern, but there's traditional wisdom about the herb. You know, humans have been working with it since forever. As long as humans have been humans, they've had a relationship with this mushroom, but it's been kind of obscured and covered up and tabooized, made a taboo. You know, it doesn't look quite the same when it's dried, but this is the red mushroom with the white spots. It's a real mushroom. Classic, cliche. The imagery of this mushroom is impregnated everywhere. Everywhere. In the church, in paintings, all over the place, man. Because, yeah, it's like the original fucking sacrament. I can't stress it enough. Like, but what does that mean to you? You know, sacrament, that word. What does that word mean to me? What does that word mean to you? So, yeah, this thing, I believe it's antibacterial, like antibiotic, antiviral, anti-cancer, anti-disease. Just like anti-disease. Because it has an effect on the body, but it also has an effect on the mind, right? And both those influence each other. And so you can do certain bodily things to have an effect on the mind, and you can also do certain things in the mind to have an effect on the body. If your mind becomes quiet and calm and peaceful and illumined, that's going to have an uplifting effect on the body. And if there's anything clogging up the system, and this mushroom and other herbs can help move that, that's also going to have an effect on the mind. That's going to have a clearing on the mind. So this mushroom helps to heal, helps to purify, helps to teach. It's free, not free, it grows abundantly on this earth. You can pay money for it. It's well worth it. It's like, you spend a couple dollars and you have mailed to your door the fucking most supreme sacrament. It's like pretty profound that you can do that, There was a time when like some of these were, you could trade a whole entire reindeer for a couple mushrooms, like very, very highly prized and coveted. But nowadays, you got people all over the world picking them and selling them, and you can buy them, and they're legal, and they can heal you, and they can heal and help just about everyone. So like that's the thing, is like psilocybin, I believe, to really get the most out of that requires a certain kind of person, a certain kind of mind, a certain kind of heart, and that person may be rare in this modern era. So depending on where a person's at, like psilocybin just might be too powerful for them. But I believe that the Amanita is much more broadly applicable to the majority of people in low dosages. The higher dosages, they get really trippy, and that's going to also require a certain ability, or even a lack of ability, just like a sincere surrender. Ultimately, that's what it requires, is a sincere surrender. Because when you get into the higher dosages, something that's very common that this mushroom will facilitate is the fucking experience of death. That you are dying and you die, and then you realize that you aren't actually going to die and you are reborn. It's really amazing, but like you'll be in it, and it's hard to explain it. I don't want to give it away. I just want to warn you that if you take enough of this, all of a sudden something will happen, and the sequence starts going on, and you start going through this phase, and you're pretty damn sure that you're about to die. Your death is impending, right? Almost as if you're skydiving. You're like, there's the ground, and I'm getting closer and closer, and then you didn't die, and you actually realize that you're basically immortal, and you got to take care of the body, though. And yeah, the higher dosages, yeah, you can get into whole crazy DMT type experiences, all the crazy psychedelic experiences described with other molecules. Like I've thoroughly, ingested all this stuff by itself as well as combinations. I've combined kind of like everything into one cup and like blah blah blah. And so what I'll say is that psilocybin and Amanita are both distinct, unique characters, unique teachers, but they also still have a lot of overlap and overlay as far as like what they're doing. You know, you got the red ray and the blue ray, and it's just like you have a science teacher and an English teacher. You have more than one teacher, but they're all kind of, you know, leading up to the same mountain peak. But just in general, I think basically anyone who's in pain, anyone who's depressed, anyone who's upset or fearful, just any human suffering at all, you give them a piece of this and their suffering will be reduced. Guaranteed. I believe that this mushroom can relieve suffering. As long as you're open to it and you have trust and faith, you know, it's easy to override these things. It's easy, you know, a lot of sick people take herbs, but they fucking sabotage the whole thing with their mind or other habits. But if you're open to it, it can be all that and more. You know? Yeah, you can freaking time travel, you can freaking voyage through the farthest galaxy inside of yourself, you can freaking live out countless lives, you can see your whole life flash before your eyes, you can witness the whole creation and destruction of the whole universe and cosmos happen in rapid succession. You could experience this thing where you're basically thinking every single thought ever possible every fucking second at a cycle that increases. Boom, 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 boom. And it's just actually it's freaking crazy. It's like every possible thought ever happening in a loop ever faster, increasing exponentially. It's just like, and you're just laying there like, whoa. So yeah, then the other thing too is like it can kind of go both ways to where like it can be like a stimulant and can give you like a lot of energy and like get you like real going, right? But it can also just lay you out and put you in pretty much like a coma or just like a serious shavasana where like there is no moving, you're moving inside, right? And then that gets back to there's like the two molecules, the ibotenic acid, the muscimol. The ibotenic acid decarboxylates to muscimol, and like generally, basically, the ibotenic acid is considered to be more of a stimulant and an upper, and the muscimol is more dreamy and more of a, I don't want to say downer, I don't want to say a depressant, but more of a, the muscimol will help you go to sleep or have like some kind of journey, whereas the ibotenic acid might get you up and like chopping wood and carrying water at an increased rate. The other thing too is that the ibotenic acid is I guess more considered to be responsible for creating some of the less desirable side effects, which actually may be beneficial side effects, but it depends on how you interpret it. So those side effects being nausea, you know, upset tummy, which is a common thing with plant medicine, some kind of sensation in the tummy. My experience is that all the nausea caused by these herbs is a benefit, and if you can breathe through it and feel through it, you're basically untangling knots in your system. And if the Amanita does lead to causing you to purge, to throw up, to vomit, it is like the most relieving vomit ever. It's like pain-free, it's easy, it just comes right out, and then as soon as it's out, like you feel a million times lighter and better, and you just feel like you just got rid of the fucking devil himself. Just boom, right? So the nausea, that'll pass, and it also, that all depends on your system. The other side effect is that it increases the sweating, it increases perspiration, and it also increases salivation. Not to be confused with salvation, but maybe there's some connection there. But yeah, the molecules will make you start to produce a lot of saliva. Like a lot. You could end up like drooling all over and whatever. But if you know anything about, you know, biology, saliva is very good for the canal, for the tubes, right? It's a good thing. So if you don't get upset that you're drooling and you just swallow it, you're getting a good cleanse, a good lubrication, a good cycle of energy, right? So these side effects, I take them as they're good. It's the medicine working. It's in effect. Perspiration is also beneficial. The waters get moving. The waters get flowing. Yeah, there's a lot more still to say, but I guess I'll just go to with the last little tidbit is that, because of the waters flowing, is that for whatever reason, these molecules, they pass through the body very quickly, basically unmetabolized. What I'm saying is that if you consume this mushroom, your urine, your pee-pee, becomes extra psychoactive, very psychoactive. But I'm not going to get all into that right now. That's for another video. The thing is delicious. And again, some people who react negatively to natural substances think it's like nasty, but it's actually like a super delicious. Very savory, very umami, very meaty, very like it's like the missing ingredient. Like when you add it to food, which is one of the best ways to utilize it. You can put it in your mouth as is. You can make teas with it. You can make mead with it. You can make tinctures. You can make all types of things. It's water soluble. The active constituents are water soluble. So any recipe involving water, this can be done with it. But I would recommend not combining it with, toxic crap. Don't put this in soda. But you can put it in like coconut water or, whatever, orange juice. Or curry, or stew, or soup. It's very versatile, and very delicious. Like the what it brings to a dish and a meal, it's almost like that one missing ingredient you've been looking for your whole life. Like if you have you put everything in there, it comes out perfect, but you're like, oh, it's missing one thing. What is that one thing? It's this, and also potentially cannabis, but. That's for another video. So that I guess is a brief crash course introduction to this Amanita, and I think I've said most of the main things to say. Again, there's always more. It's an infinite type of thing, It's like there's no end to meditation. There's no end to this experience. But the point of me doing this, and the reason I'll probably make another video and continue to put this out there, is that at the end of the day, I think this is like the most important message that I'm bearing, that I'm carrying, that I want people to know. Because I really can't teach people how to eat well. I can't teach people how to fast. I can't teach people how to meditate. I can't teach people really how to do anything. And I can't even get them to eat herbs. But if I can just at least throw the seeds out there, like, hey, this is good, try it, and I could just let God take care of the rest, I'm content with that. I'm content with just sowing seeds. And so it's my seed, my personal biased, delusional, fucking crazy, grandiose belief that this mushroom is the most powerful and important herb in the whole earth and can cure almost everything. And more. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think that's a fact. And I know people will disagree with it. I know people don't think it's as powerful as I say it is. But they're not me, and they haven't experienced what I've experienced. And what I've experienced is I wish I could tell you. But you got to see it yourself. You got to taste it firsthand. But, I heard about these so many years ago, and, there's so much bullshit on the internet. There's bullshit everywhere about this. In every mushroom field guide, it'll tell you that this mushroom's poisonous and toxic and dangerous. When actually, it's the fucking holy sacrament. That's the truth of it. You go online and you got other people just saying it's a stupid drug, it's pointless, it's useless, it's toxic, all these stupid things. And for whatever reason, I was like, well, I'm going to try it anyway. And I tried it, and it was good. Very good.